sit back and relax as we listen to one of the many special voices from our community. On this episode of This Place, Our Voices, with your host, Elyssa.
In this episode, we're joined by Sarah from Empowered Trauma Therapy, a local Nantwich therapist who specialises in helping people with PTSD, chronic anxiety and depression. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sarah.
Great to be here, thank you.
Can you tell me what the story is behind Empowered Trauma Therapy? Where did it all start?
Well, I started my counselling training 10 years ago now. Went to Keele University, and I've had a complete career change, and I did something very different before, but had a bit of a career break when I had my daughter. And when she was about sort of 18 months old, I was starting to get itchy feet again and wanting to do something. Always been interested in psychology, did them A-levels and personal development, self-help, always loved those types of books. Always got reflected that, I think, you'd make a great counsellor. You've got listening, all the kind of the usual things. So I was just enrolled on a course just to get my brain going again. And then started on a certificate and loved it, really, really enjoyed it, which then progressed on to the postgraduate diploma. And then a couple of years later, I top that up to a master's. So it's been really feel like I've found something that fits me and is really sort of, without sounding very cliche, what I'm meant to do. It was a person-centered course that I went on to start with, which is sort of your traditional kind of talking therapy. Then it was when I was doing my training hours, because as a trainee therapist, you do 100 training hours with clients. And it was then that I discovered trauma therapy. I'd got a few clients who had been through some particular experiences in life. I was intrigued to find out, what happens to you when you go through experiences like this. Because I was fascinated. They were presenting in a very similar way that was different to my other clients. So that sort of really sparked a curiosity in me. So then I found, they found trauma therapy and what happens in the brain, neuroscience, neuropsychology. And that just sparked a real interest in me on top of what I'd already learned about counselling and therapeutic relationships. So, that's sort of how Empowered Trauma Therapy has evolved from there.
What do you consider to be your biggest achievement so far?
I think it was achieving my master's. That was a real big thing for me. I'd been brought up being told I wasn't very academic at all. I went in, my previous career was very creative. I never thought I was one for writing essays, let alone 15,000 words. But I wrote my dissertation in a very creative way. I wrote it as a short story. But I'm incredibly proud of myself because it was the hardest thing that I've done. But yes, incredibly proud that I have achieved that and got something out of it that I can use as well. So
they do say, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely. And challenging so many beliefs that I had about myself and realising that they were not true. So that was, real personal growth as well as business achievement.
Has there been a particular challenge that's pushed you to grow or rethink your approach?
This year, I think, has been a particularly different, challenging one. So I think that has, given me a slightly different lens. Obviously, I'm, still doing the things that I was doing before. But my dad became very unwell at the beginning of this year and then passed away at the end of April. And going through that experience has really given me a different lens, certainly on what I want to achieve. And and why I'm doing it, what I'm doing it for, reflecting back on his life and all the things. Yeah. And now really redefining, I think, yes, what my why. I think that's been the real sort of refocus this year, and realizing that you can go through challenges and still carry on. I think, you still, big things will change you, but you're still you, I think. And I think that's been sort of a big learning sort of curve for me. So I think that's sort of, this year has been particular, has had its particular challenges, and then all the kind of legal stuff that happens afterwards as well. But it's really made me hone in and focus on what I want and what I want to achieve.
People may presume that because of the training that you've had, that when you personally go through trauma, that you know exactly how to deal with it. I'm sure that's not the case, because it's never going to be practice what you preach. It's a bit like a compartmentalizing of it.
Absolutely. And obviously grief is very different for everybody, and there's everybody has their own particular challenges with grief. So it has really honed in all those different feelings that get brought up, and it's certainly a lot of personal growth has happened this year, because of that experience. But I need my own support as well. I couldn't do what I did if I didn't have my own support structure around me, of just family and friends, but my own, as therapists, we're required to have supervision regularly, and also to be aware of our own thoughts and feelings, and access any therapeutic support that we need for ourselves. So I've done all of those this year, because I want to be the best that I can for my clients. So I know I need to look after myself.
Would you say there's any common misconceptions about the type of work that you do?
I always say I'm not in the business of re-traumatizing people. I think there is a sort of common misconception that if you talk about these kinds of things, it's going to make you feel worse, and it's going to have a real negative impact. People work so very hard to function in day-to-day life. This can feel very scary to be able to think about talking about it, thinking like they've got to relive those situations again. And sort of the way that often sort of therapy and counselling is sort of portrayed in the wider media can give a misconception that, you have to sort of regress right back into traumatic childhood memories in order to heal, which isn't the case. That is not the case. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of processing what's happened to them. Sometimes it does involve a lot of talking, but, a experienced therapist will never let you get to a point where you are so distressed you can't function. That's not what therapy is. And we're here to help you feel better, not to feel worse. So that's what I often find, when people, first having those initial conversations with me about, well, I don't want to talk about it though, but I want to feel better, but I don't want to talk about it. So it was completely up to you. Some people want to, some people don't. We can still feel better without talking about it if that's what helps you. So there's never any right or wrong with therapy either.
Can you explain what EMDR and body psychotherapy is?
Yeah, so those are the two areas that I specialise in, as a counsellor, as a psychotherapist. So EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. And it's a specific tool and technique to use with people who have very troubling, traditionally it's been with very troubling memories like nightmares, flashbacks. It's an excellent tool to be able to rewire, reprogram, process those troubling memories so they lose their intensity. And so there's a specific technique that you do to help rewire the brain, so the brain doesn't feel like it needs to keep flashing it back at you all the time. But it's also been developed, it can be used in a whole wide variety of emotional distress. So how I very much integrate EMDR principles and tools into my particular way of working. And then body psychotherapy is what goes on in the body. So there's a particular famous book called The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a very well-known psychiatrist who's done a lot in the trauma therapy field. And a lot of research shows that the way that a human being's stress response is wired up, we feel a lot of those emotions in our body. From a purely evolutional survival point of view, we need to, if somebody's running at us with a knife, we need to feel something in our bodies to do something to keep us alive. But if you go through lots of experience, negative experiences, stressful experiences in your life, your body kind of remembers how it felt in that experience. And if it feels similar feelings in another situation, it will take you back to that feeling, even if it's not exactly the same. So that's what body psychotherapy is if there are lots of trauma memories stuck within the body, it's about reprocessing those and to give them different meaning, get a different understanding, so it doesn't have such an emotional impact on you when dealing with everyday stress.
Does the reset method feed into that as well?
Absolutely. So because I have quite a sort of a different way of working, and so to be able to convey what that difference is, I've called it my reset method. So it's an acronym for relational empowered somatic EMDR therapy. So what it basically means is that all the elements and the modalities that I draw on, bringing those all together, interweaving those in my therapy practice. So the core of who I am is a very relational therapist, and that means that importance on that therapeutic relationship, helping somebody feel very safe, very secure with it in their time with me, and then using those specific techniques depending on who the client is, what they've been. It's always very individual, it's always very different, but there's a certain structure that every client goes through. So the somatic relates to the body psychotherapy. Somatic means what goes on in your body.
What advice would you give somebody who may be listening to this now, who is undecided as to whether therapy is for them, but just wants to know what the next step would be?
Me and other therapists, we're always just having that first conversation. There's never any pressure. Well, there shouldn't be anyway. And there never any is with me. Just picking up the phone, I always offer what I call a free assessment to start with. We have a 20-minute discussion about what you're looking for, what's initiated you searching for help, and I explain what my style of therapy is, how I feel I could help you, and then you can decide then whether this feels right for you. If it doesn't feel right for you, then that's absolutely fine. Even if you've been through lots of stuff in your life, doesn't necessarily mean that counselling and therapy, is right for you at this time. There's normally something, sort of deep innately within you that goes, now is the time. Now is this time to look at what I've been through and to sort this out. I know in order to go forward, I need to do this. But that, if that's not there for you, it doesn't mean, even if you've been through lots of stuff, you don't have to go for therapy.
Do you have any advice for someone who may have a friend or a relative who they think should go for therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's a British society, but Western society as a whole is still quite rubbish at talking about feelings. But certainly, as, just it's not something that it's getting more talked about these days, but, there's still a lot of us that were brought up not having those conversations around thoughts and feelings. So first of all, it's very understandable that you find it difficult. You can see a friend or a loved one who's in distress, but you're not quite sure what to do. First of all, giving yourself that understanding that that's completely normal. But what can be helpful, if it feels difficult to broach it head on, is to use the wider world as an example. So, you can talk, about some like TV program you've watched. Oh, did you watch the latest episode of EastEnders, Coronation Street, or whatever it may be, or the latest Netflix kind of thing? They went through that, and they felt really better. What do you think about it? And kind of gauging where they're at with it. Are they at that place of like, yeah, I need some help? Or is that not in their awareness yet that actually this is what I need? And obviously depending on what kind of relationship you have, but using sort of like a third party to have that inroad can be helpful to take away that kind of emotional intensity, which can feel awkward sort of in everyday kind of conversations. But yeah, or like, there's those podcasts now that people listen to, audio books, or, say on Netflix, latest thing that's on Sky or whatever, what's being sort of talked about in the wider society that doesn't feel sort of quite so direct.
If they have a positive or open-minded reaction to those sorts of conversations, it can lead to discussing next steps.
Yeah, and they say, have you thought about going to the doctors? Or, I've seen this person. She says that she does all of this. What do you think about that? Yeah, although, there are lots, if it's sort of a specific type of experience that they've been through, any kind of abuse, then, there are lots of charities out there, or is there alcohol or substance misuse? Then there are lots of charity support out there as well that you can sort of direct people to.
Is it appropriate for someone to make an appointment on behalf of somebody else, as long as the other person had agreed to it, but maybe the appointment maker joined them on their first appointment to hold their hand?
It is a very common scenario. Certainly, more and more now as people are becoming more aware of the benefits of counselling and therapy, and that this are, whether it's sort of as a couple together or their partners, like, you need to go and see somebody. You've been through all of this and you're horrible to me, and it's because of that you need to go and see somebody. So I have had quite a few clients who've come in that kind of circumstances of like, my wife sent me here, or my partner sent me here, or my partner thinks it's a good idea that I should be here. And sometimes it is beneficial, and sometimes they're not in that right place. The person needs to have choice. They need to feel like they're in control of this and have that autonomy. Well, no matter what age they are, obviously with a younger person, that's a more common scenario that parent rings up and makes an appointment. But if a young person comes to me, I'd always, make sure they understand this is their choice. They don't have to be here if they don't want to. And that, no matter what age you are, I always make that clear. This is your choice to be here. This is your time. This is about what you want, not about what, you think expectations of other people are.
What's the age range of the people that you work with?
Tend to specialise more in adults, but I am qualified to work with children, and I work with quite a lot of teenagers, so like young people. So I can do young. Obviously, younger children tends to be sort of more play based, which I can do, but I'm not. I haven't got a big setup for that. If it's young, I do tend to be direct younger children to other therapists who I know who are in a much better setup for helping younger ones work through their difficult emotion.
How do people find you, whether that be online or social media, if they'd like to talk about making an appointment?
I have my own website, which is empoweredtraumatherapy.com. You can contact me through there. I've got a booking link to my diary. If you want to book in a free assessment, you can book it directly through there. I'm on social media, so I'm on Facebook, Empowered Trauma Therapy by Sarah Jones. You can find me there. Instagram, my handle is at Sarah Jones Counsellor. I've had a dabble with TikTok. I feel very middle-aged. My 12-year-old daughter tries to keep getting me to do all these videos. I might get more. I am on there, but I don't do a lot on there. So Facebook and Instagram are my main ones sort of on social media. And then I'm also launching a brand new 5-day course on the 25th of November. So this is great for people who have sort of long-term anxiety and or depression. Know that you've been through, some stuff, but not really ever been in that place to really want one-to-one therapy, or maybe you've had one-to-one therapy before and it's still there, or you've tried lots of things. This course sort of brings my reset method in a group format, because I work with a lot with groups as well. I'm also a counselling tutor. So I'm bringing all of my group experience into an online format, so I can help more people in a more cost-effective way as well. So each day we'll just go look at different aspects of why anxiety and depression manifest, what goes on in the brain, what goes on in the body, and then simple ways to be able to start that reprocessing, that rewiring system, but all done in a very easy, accessible way. It won't be hard work, and there won't be lots of stuff to do. I'll be coming live. It'll all be done in a private Facebook group. I'll be going live for sort of an hour and a half every day, and going through over my structure. So by the end of the week, you'll have a framework to know what to do with these anxiety and low mood feelings. So then you can start. It's called Panic to Peace. So it's about moving through that very panicked, very fearful state into a more calm, peaceful state. And I'll give you that framework, give you that structure on what you need to go through there, because every human being's survival system, stress system is exactly the same. Everybody has a different way of processing the world, but we all have exactly the same process that we go through when we're feeling troubled about something. So it's about working with that system. And when you really understand how that system works, that's what can give you that power for change. So that's, that's when the empowerment comes in. That's what can really empower somebody.
A great opportunity. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. It's been extremely interesting talking to you.
Oh, thank you, Elyssa. It's been really good to talk to you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow our Facebook page, This Place, Our Voices, where we share updates, highlights, and more ways to connect with our community. And don't forget to follow This Place, Our Voices on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps others to find us. Be sure to join us again to hear another voice from our community. As we listen and share, let's remember that every voice matters. Thanks for being part of this journey.